You are born in a small border town in 1889 in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. On maps, it appears powerful, stretching across Central and Eastern Europe, ruling over more than 50 million people. But inside it is deeply unstable. The empire is not a nation. Germans and Hungarians dominate political power, while Czechs, Slovaks, Croats, Serbs, Poles, Ukrainians, Romanians and Italians are often excluded from meaningful representation. You hear how your neighbors talk about politics, but you are too young, you have your dreams, and in your dreams politics don't exist. Still, before you understand politics, you live in a system that is collapsing and that will affect you later. By the early 1900s, nationalist movements are no longer just ideas. They are organized, vocal, and increasingly radical. Newspapers, political clubs, and student groups push for autonomy or independence. Ethnic tensions affect daily life. Language disputes in schools, discrimination in jobs, and political deadlock in parliament. The Austrian Reichsrat is paralyzed by conflict between nationalist groups, making effective governance nearly impossible. Your father represents politics. He has no major role, but still, you have politics at home. As a customs official, he is a part of the imperial bureaucracy, the mechanism that keeps the empire functioning. His job is not glamorous, but it is stable. It requires discipline, loyalty, and obedience. As a child, you have none, and that will increase tension with your father. He wants you to enter the system, to become a civil servant, to live a predictable life. But you resist. You are drawn to something completely different: art, architecture, and the visual power of cities. You admire the grand boulevards of Vienna, monumental buildings like the parliament and opera houses, and the idea of shaping the physical world through design. You are fascinated by how architecture could express power, identity, and culture. This difference will turn into constant conflict. Your father sees your ambition as unrealistic, even dangerous. Artists, in his view, are unstable. He had lived through economic uncertainty himself and fears the same for you. You are rebelling not just against your father, but the system. You are still young, but you have to build your life. Arguments become frequent and intense. Authority in your mind is associated with limitation, not guidance.
We shall fight on the landing ground. We shall fight in the fields and in the
Remember the
we shall fight in the hills.
of the onslaught.
We shall never surrender.
You show early ability, especially in drawing and visual subjects. You ignore subjects that don't interest you, including mathematics and technical training. Ironically, the very skills required for architecture. Teachers describe you as talented but undisciplined, capable for unwilling to conform. This is not just laziness, it is a rejection of systems that demanded uniformity. Your childhood represents a broader tension across Europe, the clash between traditional authority and emerging individualism, between rigid institutions and new ambitions fueled by urbanization and cultural change. Then, your father dies. This removes the main source of pressure in your life, but it also removes structure. Without strict guidance, your discipline does not improve. Instead, you drift farther away from formal education. You leave school without completing the qualifications required for higher studies. This decision has long-term consequences. In Austro-Hungary, education is not just about knowledge. It's a gateway to professions. Without formal certification, entire career paths are closed. Architecture, in particular, requires technical schooling, mathematics, and accreditation. Still, you believe your talent will be enough. Then comes a second, more devastating loss: your mother. She has been your emotional anchor, the one person who supported your ambitions. When she became seriously ill, likely from cancer, treatment options were extremely limited at the time. Pain management was primitive, and survival rates were low. You stayed with her during her final months, witnessing her suffering. Her death left you completely alone. No parents, no guidance, no emotional support, no financial stability. Psychologically, this mattered. You had lost both authority, your father, and compassion, your mother. What remains is isolation, combined with a growing sense of personal failure. Now you have only one plan: become an artist. So you move to Vienna. At that time, Vienna is one of the largest and most complex cities in Europe, with over 2 million inhabitants. It is the imperial capital, a center of culture, music, and intellectual life, but it is also a city under economic pressure. Industrialization had transformed Vienna rapidly. Between 1850 and 1910, the population more than doubled. This growth created massive structural problems. Housing shortages. Workers were crammed into small apartments, often with the entire family sharing a single room. Rising rents. Landlords profited from overcrowding, making housing increasingly unaffordable. Low wages. Industrial workers earned just enough to survive, with little savings, unemployment. Economic downturns could leave thousands without work overnight. Poor sanitation. In working-class districts, disease spread easily due to lack of proper infrastructure. Vienna is a city of extremes. Wealth and poverty exist side by side. You enter this environment without qualifications. You applied to the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna. Admission was highly competitive. Hundreds applied. Only a small percentage were accepted. The academy prioritized technical precision, especially in human anatomy and figure drawing. You failed. The evaluation was detailed. Your architectural sketches showed some promise, but your figure drawing was considered inadequate. Poor proportions, weak understanding of the human form. You apply again, fail again. This is a critical turning point. The academy didn't just reject you, it redirected you. They suggested architecture, but without a secondary education diploma, you are not eligible. This was structural exclusion. Your ambition collided with institutional requirements you had ignored. Your entire career path collapses. At the same time, your financial situation deteriorated rapidly. Without family support, you had to survive on your own. You painted small works, mostly architectural scenes, postcards, and city views. They were sold cheaply, often through middlemen who profited far more than you did. Your income was unstable and minimal. You moved into increasingly poor living conditions, cheap rented rooms, shared apartments, eventually homeless shelters and men's hostels. One of the most significant was the men's hostel in Vienna. These facilities housed hundreds of men, day laborers, unemployed workers, migrants, and failed students. Conditions were strict and impersonal. Large dormitories with rows of beds, limited privacy, scheduled routines, basic meals, minimal personal belongings allowed. This was survival at the lowest social level. But these hostels were also intellectual environments in an unexpected way. Men talked constantly about jobs, about wages, about injustice, about politics. Newspapers circulated widely, and Vienna had one of the most politically engaged populations in Europe. Even the poorest residents were exposed to complex political debates. Several movements competed for influence. Social Democrats representing workers and advocating labor rights, unions, and social reforms. Conservatives defending monarchy, religion, and traditional hierarchy. Nationalists demanding ethnic self-determination. Pan-German groups promoting unity of German-speaking peoples and often opposing the multi-ethnic empire. One key figure was Karl Lueger, the mayor of Vienna. He used modern political strategies, mass rallies, emotional appeals, and simple messaging that connected directly with ordinary people. His success showed something new. Politics was no longer controlled only by elites. Mass participation had arrived. At the same time, Europe's economy was changing rapidly. Industrial competition intensified. Germany had become a leading industrial power, surpassing United Kingdom in key sectors like steel production. This created economic rivalry and tension. Agricultural workers across Eastern Europe struggled as industrial goods replaced traditional economies. Migration increased. Millions moved to cities or emigrated abroad in search of work. Economic insecurity became widespread. This fed political radicalization. Meanwhile, international tensions escalated. Under Wilhelm II, Germany pursued an aggressive foreign policy, expanding its navy and challenging British dominance. This triggered an arms race. France prepared for conflict with Germany. Russia maintained a massive but poorly organized army. Europe divided into alliances, Germany and Austro-Hungary, France and Russia. Britain increasingly aligned with France and Russia. The Balkans became the most volatile region. Serbia aimed to unite South Slavic people, directly threatening Austro-Hungary. Tensions escalated through events like the Bosnian crisis and the Balkan Wars. At the same time, military planning intensified. Germany developed the Schlieffen Plan, a precise strategy requiring rapid mobilization and railway coordination. Across Europe, conscription systems ensured millions of soldiers could be deployed within days. War was not spontaneous, it was prepared in advance. And while all of this unfolded, you remained in poverty, absorbing the environment around you. Your personal struggles began to mirror larger patterns. Economic hardships in Vienna reflected broader inequality. Political arguments in hostels reflected continental instability. Your personal failures reflected structural barriers in society. You searched for explanations. Complex ones existed, but they were difficult. Simpler explanations were more appealing. They offered clear causes, clear blame, clear direction. By 1913, you left Vienna and moved to Munich, in Germany. Compared to Austro-Hungary, Germany appeared more unified, more efficient, more stable. You were also avoiding military service in the Austro-Hungarian army. Then, in 1914, everything changed. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand triggered a chain reaction. Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Germany supported Austro-Hungary. Russia mobilized. France joined Russia. Britain entered after Belgium was invaded. Within weeks, Europe was at war. Everything you had experienced, the unstable empire, economic struggle, political conflict, personal loss, social isolation, was part of a larger crisis. By the time the war began, you are no longer just a failed artist. You are shaped by a collapsing empire, urban poverty, educational exclusion, personal trauma, political radicalization, economic instability. For the first time, your life had direction, not through art, but through war.